Hello and welcome to Console Training. My name is Alex Hughes, and today we have a fantastic little video detailing the companion software for Streamdeck. So, if you haven't seen the Streamdeck little bit of hardware before, we've got an image of it up on the screen now. Essentially, it's a little OLED controller, and it works really, really well. So when you originally download it or buy the hardware, you get basic software that allows you keystroke control, because the device was really only meant to be used for streamers, but obviously our markets picked it up and realized the full potential of it. And the way that we use it is by uninstalling the default software and downloading something called Companion. Now we've got a little bit of a preview of Companion in front of us now. I'll put a link in the description of where to download it. It runs on Mac, Windows, Linux, even on a Raspberry Pi, which is absolutely fantastic. You install the application, and then you get a little window that looks like the one in our top right-hand corner here, which allows us to change what it's bound to in terms of IP address, and we can also change the port that it's bound to. And then, if we click Launch GUI, we get the little web window that we've got here. Now, we're only going to be covering the grandMA implementation of it today. But as you can see, there are a lot of different bits of software that it controls, and these are all without keystroke. So things like there's QLab, you can control, CamSys, grandMA2, Hog4, even a show control system. Most of the switching systems, even Christie projectors, we can do timecode, we can do timers. There's so many things that this can do now with this software, and we can also layer up a bunch of other ones. So my greatest example, and this is always the way that I've sold this software, which by the way is free at this point, and I believe that it'll remain free in its current state, but the way that I sell this software is, number one, you can use a lot of these devices hooked up together off one computer. But imagine being able to put one of these devices in front of your show caller and being able for them to call video cues but also trigger it. So it can trigger your audio system, QLab, even a backup and primary, switch, and also fade, your video state. But let's jump in and let's look at the grandMA implementation. So when we load it up, we get a little bit of information that we need to key in. We need to make sure that we enable Telnet, because it talks over Telnet, which we'll do in a second. But we're going to call this MA1, or MA2 on PC, just because MA1 is confusing. And we need to give it the console IP. Now, the software needs to obviously run on a computer, Raspberry Pi, whatever it is, but we can directly connect to an on-PC session or even a console. So we're going to connect to an on-PC, but if we had, let's say an MA2 Lite or full size or ultra light, we could connect that there. So we'll go quickly across to MA2, and we'll go to Setup, and we're just going to check what our IP address is and that we've got a session started. So we know that we're on 10.0.44, which is the same computer we're on now, and we're just going to jump into Global Settings and make sure that Telnet is enabled. We could also change the user that it logs in as by going to user profiles, and we could set up a user, but I'm logged in as the default admin, and we'll use that for now. I have had issues with it with users that don't have passwords, so just be aware of that. But the support community is really fantastic. From an MA perspective, Console Training is supporting it, so any issues that you have with Companion, do let us know, because we will be supporting the MA implementation of it. And we hope to see MA3 and maybe even .2 on it. .2's got no Telnet as far as I know, but it does have a web remote. So we'll see what we can do with there. Their support is absolutely fantastic. So let's quickly jump back. And I'm having to do this manually because I'll let you in on a secret in the way that we run our setup here. I normally use a Streamdeck to just go between different things in our recording software. But anyway, we've got a little virtual Streamdeck in our corner. We've got the software, and we're going to start keying in information. So we're going to type in 10.0.0.44. We're going to log in as the normal user. We're going to click Apply Changes. We can see that it's updated back there. So if now we go back to instances, we can see status is okay. Now we can come across to buttons, and we can see that we have our button view. So I'm going to erase this page just to make sure there's nothing there. We can also name the page. So we've called this one MA. Let's call it MA2. And we're going to click on an empty button, and it gives us some interesting options. Firstly, you can set the button style for text or PNG image. We're going to go with text, and we're going to say, we're going to call it what it actually is going to be, macro 1. We can also change the background of the text, like so. And then we can also do actions. So if we click add key, we can see that we've got a bunch of internal ones. And then we've got one down the bottom that says run command. And that's what we're doing here. We're just running commands. So you can do this in two ways. We could key in what we want to do, which is, in my case, the example we're going to use is toggle exec 1.201. And if we bring up MA for a sec, and I click that button, we can see that it toggles it. I might actually just copy this little Stream Deck across, so we can see what we're doing. Paste as linked source. So I can see that if I click the little button, we can see that it toggles what we're doing there. Now that's one way of doing it. However, the way that I prefer to do it, because I end up normally putting the Stream Deck in the hands of someone else, I prefer to have overall control of what it's doing. So rather than going with exact commands here, I normally go with go or just macro 1. And when we click out of that box, it automatically updates. And now if we come back to our MA2, we can see that if I created a macro 2, I created a macro 1, it would trigger that macro. So we're going to go in, we're going to call it toggle exec 1.201. And now if we click the button again, we can see that it works. But by doing this, it means that if I'm sitting behind the console and we need to change something, like with my video state example, we've got, you know, the show director or even Vision triggering stuff, and you're on a coffee break or something, or, you know, you're just running rehearsal, is a more likely thing. I don't know why you'd be away from your desk during a show. They can do whatever they need, but if I come back and decide that a fade time's not right, I can manually adjust whatever the macros do, rather than having to find a laptop, log into the software, or go to their laptop. It's a lot easier to do it like that, from in my opinion. Obviously with this device, we can also change pages. We can bring up web buttons as well. So if we go back to Bohm, or I've called the page Bohm, that's my brain. We can use web buttons, which we can see down the bottom. Just provides you with a quick way of doing things. But yeah, that's essentially it. So the one limitation that we have is because of the way that it works, it doesn't actually execute into the command line. So we can't have it toggle a button such as, you know, the effect button. As far as I know, we're going to test this, but I'm pretty sure we can't have it toggle a button. We'll try an exact command for that. Because of the way that it works, because it's technically logging in as a Telnet user, which is a separate user. So if we go back to buttons, we go button 2, we go down to run command, and we just, let's have it run just the fixture command. We'll also give it a button style of fixture. And we'll change that text as well so it actually fits. And now let's see what happens. In theory, it should, oh, okay, so there you go. So we can change, it will actually execute that. So what if fixture 1 through 10? I know that's not a command that you'd run, but I'm wanting to see whether, yeah, it's going to put an end at an enter at the end of the command, which is okay. But you know, you won't be able to do, let's say, the 7 key, because if you wanted to set it up as a keypad, it's going to always put an enter at the end of it because it is a command in the way that it sends it. You could probably use an @ which means the next action will allow you to do something, but you won't be able to use this as just buttons. You'd have to probably use your shortcut keys again and do it with keystrokes. But anyway, real fast one for you guys. Hope you appreciate it. Have a great day.